There is a court that has been assembled around you without you being notified. No formal accusation, no set date. But the verdict is already being circulated before any hearing. Your silence has been turned into evidence. Your absence was read as a confession. And the questions that reach you: why did you disappear? Why didn't you tell me? What did I do? Are not genuine questions. They are pieces of a narrative that has already been assembled, already distributed, already gathered sympathy. And you are being summoned to defend yourself in a trial whose rules were written by those who accuse you. What this video will do is give you something that this court will never offer you: discernment. The ability to sit before the accusation without collapsing into self-condemnation, and at the same time without discarding all criticism as an attack. Because the two wrong answers are sisters, swallowing everything as if every accusation were true, or rejecting everything as if no criticism needed examination. Spiritual maturity lives in the territory between the two. And it is this territory that you need to learn to inhabit. Stay until the end, because the last thing I will show you in this video about what happens when you stop entering every court that is assembled around you will change the way you deal with this situation from today on. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now, because this content exists for people who are growing within situations that do not yet have an easy resolution. And what comes in the next episodes will continue this process. Let's start with what is happening in your body. Researchers from UFMG, in collaboration with the Department of Behavioral Neuropsychology, identified a pattern they called the social accusation response, the specific physiological reaction that occurs when a human being perceives they are being judged by a group to which they belonged. The markers are distinct from those of other forms of stress. There is a simultaneous activation of the threat system and the affiliation system, which creates an internal state of acute conflict. In direct language:
attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.
When you perceive that someone who was part of your life is positioning you as a defendant before others, your nervous system collapses between two simultaneous urgencies: the urgency to defend yourself and the urgency to reconnect. And this collapse produces a confusion that radically hinders clear discernment about what is truth and what is narrative. This confusion is not weakness. It is the biology of belonging being exploited in a context that no longer has the security that belonging requires. And spirituality has a very precise language for what is happening, but it is not where most people expect. It is not in the section on unconditional love. It is in the section on courts. In biblical Hebrew, the word din describes both the act of judging and the space in which the judgment happens. The court. Din is not necessarily negative in the Hebrew tradition. It is the mechanism by which justice operates, the space where the weight of an action is evaluated with established criteria. But din presupposes legitimacy. It presupposes that the court has jurisdiction. It presupposes that the rules of the process are known and applied consistently for all parties. What you are facing is not a legitimate din. It is a court without jurisdiction, with rules written by a single party, in which your silence is admitted as evidence, but the full story is inadmissible. A din in which you lose regardless of what you present, because the verdict was determined before the trial began. And the wisdom that this video wants to offer you is the ability to recognize the difference between a legitimate court to which you have a responsibility to appear with total honesty, and a court without jurisdiction, to which your appearance does not produce justice, it only legitimizes the process. This distinction changes everything, because the guilt you feel when you do not respond to the court without jurisdiction is not a sign that you were wrong. It is your belonging system reacting to a social pressure that was designed to produce exactly that sensation. The pressure works not because the court is right, but because you have a conscience, and sensitive consciences are the most efficient targets of this type of process. Like this video now, because what I will show you in the next sections about how biblical figures responded to courts without jurisdiction will change your posture toward what is happening. Nehemiah was rebuilding. Jerusalem had been destroyed, the walls were in ruins, and the people were in disgrace. Nehemiah received authorization to return and rebuild, and what he found was not just a destroyed city. He found organized, articulate adversaries with a clear objective: to make the reconstruction stop. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem were not anonymous enemies. They were figures with regional power, with relationship networks, with the capacity to build a narrative. And their strategy was precise, not a direct attack, an invitation for dialogue. 4 times they sent a message to Nehemiah: "Come and let us meet in the plain of Ono." 4 times the invitation, in the name of conversation, in the name of understanding, in the name of resolving tensions. And Nehemiah recognized exactly what it was: a trap dressed as negotiation, because if he went down from the wall to go to Ono, the valley where they were waiting for him, the construction would stop. And the real objective had never been conversation. It was paralysis. Nehemiah's response to the 4 summons is one of the most precise phrases about strategic discernment in all of biblical literature. "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you?" Notice what is absent in this response. There is no defense, there is no explanation of why he could not trust them. There is no argument about their intentions. There is no attempt to convince them that he was reasonable, accessible, willing to dialogue. There is only a declaration of priority: "I am building." And the construction does not stop for a meeting in the valley. The 5th time Sanballat came, he added an open letter, a public accusation. The narrative expanded. It was said among the nations that you plan to rebel, that you want to proclaim yourself king. The accusation was amplified, circulated, taken to the public space. And Nehemiah's response continued to be the same structure: "These things are not happening. You are inventing them in your heart." Without a prolonged hearing, without descending to the valley, without a pause in construction to manage others' perception of the construction. Researchers from UFRJ in the Social Cognition Laboratory published an analysis on what they called the public justification trap, the phenomenon in which a person publicly accused, by trying to defend themselves with articulation and detail, inadvertently amplifies the visibility of the accusation and reinforces the perception that there is something to be defended. In other terms, the more elaborate the defense, the more the court without jurisdiction gains legitimacy. The detailed defense validates the process, and Nehemiah, without having access to this research, operated with the inverse intuition. The non-dissent was the answer. The continuity of the construction was the answer. The real verdict would be produced not by what he said in the valley, but by the wall that would stand. And the wall stood, in 52 days, in circumstances that the adversaries themselves recognized as extraordinary. The text records that when the wall was finished, the surrounding nations were afraid, because they recognized that there was something beyond human effort in that result. What is being built in you cannot stop to go to Ono, and all the invitations to descend that are arriving, disguised as a request for explanation, a summons for dialogue, an appeal to your conscience, are modern versions of Sanballat's invitation. The real objective is not conversation, it is paralysis. Write the word unwavering here in the comments, because you will not go down, the work does not stop. Now we need to talk about the most important distinction that this period will require of you, and it is harder than everything I have said so far. There are 2 forces that produce internal discomfort when you are accused, and they seem identical on the outside, but they have completely different origins and require completely different responses. The Greek of the New Testament captures this distinction with a precision that Portuguese cannot reproduce in a single word. The first is catachresis, catachresis, condemnation. The voice that says, "You are guilty, you are inadequate, you are the reason for the problem, and the proof is the discomfort you feel now." Catachresis does not come with clear criteria, does not point to a specific and measurable act, does not propose a possible change. It accuses the being, not the act. It says, not that you did something wrong, but that you are something wrong. And it feeds on every attempt at defense, because the defense confirms that there is something to be defended. The second is crisis, discernment. The voice that says, there is something here that needs to be examined. Crisis has criteria. It has a specific object. It points to an act, an omission, a pattern of behavior that can be evaluated with honesty. Crisis does not accuse the being. It illuminates the act, and it proposes a direction. Here is something to be corrected, transformed, learned. Spiritual maturity, what Paul calls having one's senses exercised to discern good and evil, is the ability to sit before the discomfort of an accusation and ask, is this catachresis or crisis? Is it condemnation of the being or discernment of the act? Is this voice calling me to self-defense or to honest examination? And here is the paradox that needs to be stated clearly. Catachresis frequently uses the language of crisis. Condemnation dresses as discernment. The attack uses words of care. And that is why the distinction cannot be made only on the surface of the words that reach you. It has to be made in the quality of what happens inside you when you hear them. Researchers from PUCSP, in an analysis of emotional differentiation and moral development in adults, identified that people with a greater capacity for emotional discernment, the ability to distinguish specific internal states within diffuse experiences, systematically presented greater resistance to catachresis without developing impermeability to genuine self-examination. In direct language, those who can name what they are feeling with precision can distinguish between the pain of being caught in a real failure and the pain of being put on unjust trial. Both hurt, but the quality of the pain is different, and the body knows the difference before the mind processes the argument. The pain of crisis, of genuine discernment about something real you did or failed to do, has a quality that leads to movement. It weighs, but it points where to go. It discomforts, but it delivers a specific direction. When you examine the act with honesty and perceive that there is something real there, the pain produces humility and change. The pain of catachresis, of condemnation without a specific object, without criteria, without direction, has a different quality. It also weighs, but it leads nowhere. It does not point to an act. It accuses the being. It does not deliver direction. It delivers immobile shame. And the more you try to respond to it, the more it finds material to feed on. Before continuing, activate the bell here on the channel, because the next episode will enter a territory that directly complements what we are building today, about what happens to your interior when you stop trying to control what others narrate about you. Now I need to tell you about Paul, and about what he did with the courts that were assembled around him throughout his entire life. Paul was a man who lived within accusations, not as a passive victim. He had been a persecutor before being persecuted, and he carried that reality with an honesty he never tried to hide. But after the transformation, the quality of the accusations changed. They were now accusations of betrayal, of arrogance, of incoherence, of self-aggrandizement. And they came from within the communities he served, not just from outside them. The letter to the Corinthians is the most revealing document of how Paul operated in the face of internal accusations. The community had questioned his authority, compared his style with that of others, used the contrast as a weapon. And Paul does something that remains counterintuitive after 2,000 years. He does not respond to the court with credentials. He does not present a resume. He does not summon defense witnesses. He says, "It is of very little importance to me to be judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. My conscience is clear, but that does not justify me. The one who judges me is the Lord." 3 distinct movements in a single declaration. The first, The human court does not have final jurisdiction over my life. The second, and this is the one that surprises most, not even my own self-evaluation has final jurisdiction. The third, there is a judgment that matters, and it is not being conducted by those who are accusing me nor by myself. Paul was not being irresponsible with his conduct. He examined his own act with honesty. He recognized when he had erred. The letter to the Galatians is a document of mutual confrontation that includes severe self-criticism. But he had learned to distinguish between the responsibility of examining his own conduct and the trap of submitting to every court that was assembled around him, as if each of them had the final authority over who he was. The Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences, in research on self-perception and emotional regulation, identified that the pattern of greatest psychological health is not the absence of self-criticism nor immunity to external evaluation. It is what researchers called stable evaluative agency, the ability to submit one's own conduct to examination without yielding the definitive evaluation of one's own identity to external sources. In other terms, examining the act with rigor without letting the external accusation define who you are. Paul had stable evaluative agency. Nehemiah had stable evaluative agency. And what this episode is offering you is exactly that. Not a shortcut to get out of discomfort, but the structure to inhabit it with enough clarity to distinguish what is yours from what was projected onto you. Now I need to give you the practical tool that transforms all of this into something you can use today. There is a Hebrew term that most people know by its impoverished translation, shalom, peace. But shalom in biblical Hebrew is not the absence of conflict. It is not the tranquility of someone who is free of problems. Shalom comes from the root shalem, which means whole, complete, integrated, without fragmented parts or parts in contradiction with others. Shalom is the state of one who is not divided inside, even if the environment around is in turbulence. It is peace as structural integrity, not as the absence of external pressure. And here is what this means for what you are living. The objective is not to make the court go silent. The objective is not to convince the community that you are right. The objective is not to produce a result in which everyone agrees with your version of events. The objective is shalom, the internal integrity of one who has honestly examined what was theirs, clearly returned what was not, and continued building without descending to ono. This is possible even when the court continues to function. Even when sympathies continue to be collected, even when the narrative about you continues to circulate in spaces you do not control. Shalom does not depend on the court closing its activities. It depends on you stopping perceiving yourself as a defendant. Researchers from the Federal University of Minas Gerais, in longitudinal research on well-being in contexts of prolonged relational conflict, identified that the most consistent predictor of recovery and growth after ruptures with a high load of social judgment was not the external resolution of the conflict, which in most cases did not arrive, but what researchers called clarity of internal positioning, the ability of the person to define their own conduct and values independently of the validation of those who judge them. Shalom as a practice, not as a result. Now let me give you the 3 specific movements that build this shalom in the situation you are living. The first movement is the honest examination of one's own part, before anything else, not because the external court deserves an answer, but because your internal integrity requires that you look at the situation with the eyes of crisis, not just with the eyes of self-defense. Ask the difficult questions. Is there something I did or failed to do that contributed to this rupture? Is there a pattern of behavior that I need to examine honestly, regardless of what the other party did? Is there something I should have communicated more clearly, even if the reception were difficult? This examination is not a capitulation to the court without jurisdiction. It is the difference between Nehemiah, who knew exactly what his part was, and someone who uses the illegitimacy of the court as a shield to not examine anything. The court can be illegitimate, and you can still have real responsibilities within the situation. The two things coexist. And spiritual maturity sits with this complexity without simplifying in any direction. The second movement is the clear return of what is not yours. After the honest examination, after identifying what is genuinely your responsibility, What remains belongs to the one who projected it. The catachresis that accuses your being, not the act. The narrative about your motivations that was never verified with you. The certainty about what you felt, thought, or planned that was built without real data. This is not yours, and you do not need to carry it as if it were. Returning is not attacking. It is not building an inverse narrative where you are the victim and the other is the villain. It is simply refusing the weight that was placed on you without your consent, in silence if necessary, without an audience if necessary. The return can be an internal decision that never needs a conversation to be completed. The third movement is the continuity of the construction. This is the one that will cost the most, because the human impulse, the biological urgency of belonging that UFMG documented, will continue to generate pressure to descend to Ono. To give an explanation that reconciles the narrative, to prove that you are reasonable, that you care, that you are not what they are saying. Resisting this urgency without hardening yourself, without developing indifference as a defense, without losing the capacity for genuine care, this is the work that cannot stop. It is Nehemiah's wall. It is Paul's mission. It is Shalom being built not in the absence of pressure but within it. UFRJ published, in a complementary analysis to the study on the public justification trap, that the factor that most differentiated people who emerged from social accusation, conflicts with preserved integrity, was not the capacity for argumentation. It was not who defended themselves better. It was the capacity to continue producing concrete results during the period of accusation. The wall that stands answers the court better than any argument presented in the valley. What you are building, the growth that is occurring in you, the decisions that are being made with more clarity, the results that are beginning to appear in your life. That is your answer. Not the words in court, the wall that stands. Share this video with someone you know who is feeling like a defendant in a process they didn't ask to participate in. Because the language that person needs to step out of the position of defendant without losing the integrity of honest examination is exactly what you just heard. There is something that still needs to be said, and it is the hardest thing. The ability you develop to read relational environments with precision, to perceive when a dynamic is functioning as a trap, when an invitation is a strategy for paralysis, when a request for explanation is a control mechanism, this ability did not arise from books. It was forged in necessity. In relationships where honesty became dangerous. In contexts where you learned, through repeated experience, that bringing an achievement produced coldness and asking for support produced minimization. This learning was costly, and it left marks that are not just skills, they are also hypervigilance. The ability to identify the court that is assembled can, over time, make you see courts where there are only conversations. It can make you refuse genuine discernment because it looks like catachresis. It can make you not descend to Ono when you should, along with other moments when descending would be the right thing. Harvard Medical School, in research on attachment trauma in adults, the patterns developed in relationships of high demand and low reciprocity, identified that the ability to recognize dysfunctional patterns, when not processed with care, can generate what researchers call defensive generalization, the automatic application of the learned pattern of protection to contexts that do not require it. In direct language, what protected you in one chapter can isolate you in the next, if not examined. This does not invalidate the discernment you have, but it is an invitation for it to continue being exercised with humility, so that the ability to recognize the court without jurisdiction does not become impermeability to any voice from the outside, so that the shalom you are building is not a fortress, but a foundation, a place of stability from which you continue to be capable of genuine encounter with others. Nehemiah finished the wall, and after he finished, he went down. He summoned the people, he listened, he reorganized. The refusal to descend to Ono was not permanent, it was strategic for the period of construction. When the work was done, he was available in a way that would not have been possible if he had descended before. There is a time for everything. An et for the non-response, an et for the encounter. And the discernment between the two is what spiritual maturity is producing in you now. What is happening to you is not just a relational crisis. It is a lesson about who you become when external pressure tests the solidity of what was built inside. And what this video wants to leave with you is not a posture of victory over those who accuse you. It is the clarity of one who has honestly examined their own part, calmly returned what was not theirs, and continued building with the certainty that the wall that stands is the answer that time will reveal. You don't need to win the court, you need to finish the wall. In the next video on this channel, I will talk about the period that comes after, when the construction begins to become visible to those who watched from the outside, and about how to deal with the return of those who left before seeing the result. Because this moment has its own traps, different from those of accusation, and needs a specific wisdom that few are prepared to exercise. You were formed for this. Continue building.
Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life, a guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming, with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10,000 readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who were tired of living in the fog, ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.